Those of you that have been around for a really long time might remember a really crummy video I did in the beginning on this Kadori joint. Now I'm calling it that because I don't speak Japanese and this is a Japanese joinery system. But what's really neat about this is you can actually just turn it into a puzzle. So it's 3 pieces and the idea is to figure out how to get the joint of course, not only apart, but back together again. But it kind of got me to thinking, what if I was to make another puzzle every year for Christmas that had pieces, and I could wrap the pieces individually and put them all in stockings? So in my internet travels, I came across one of Mr. Puzzle's videos and where he made a puzzle called 3 cubes, I believe, and there are 3 pieces that look just like this. They're all identical, and when you put them together, it makes 3 cubes. So I thought, that's probably something we could make. Now, if you don't know who Mr. Puzzle is, Mr. Puzzle has a channel on YouTube, and it's a blast to watch him solve a lot of these puzzles of all different types and skill levels and everything else. So I highly recommend you guys jump over there and check out that channel. In fact, I'm not actually gonna solve this in today's video. It's much funner if you don't know how to solve it. However, on his video, he does. And so if you guys wanna check that out, I will link it hopefully at the end of this video, and if not, it'll at least be down in the description of this video. Now I made this out of oak, and in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have made it out of something different. In fact, I probably will in the future. But because we're making cubes, we need halves and doubles of certain measurements. So I picked a piece of oak that's 1/2 inch thick, and I would then rip it to 1 inch wide. That way, when 2 pieces are put together, it gives us a 1 inch cube. Now again, because we're working with cube measurements, I wanted to make the pieces 1 inch long. So I'd go through and measure out 1 inch, skip a 1/4 inch, measure another 1 inch, skip a 1/4 inch, so on and so forth. And the reason is so when I cut the pieces to length, I have enough room to work for. I'm not exactly accounting for the blade width, but more. Once I had the layout, I would go through and mark the center of the 1 inch by 1 inch squares. This is where we're gonna put our magnets, so it's important to get these right in the middle. Once I had the middles laid out, I would go through and just use the center punch to establish the center. This is just gonna give my drill bit somewhere to pilot down into. Now, the smallest magnets they had at the hardware store were 5/16, so that's exactly what I'm going to use. And for depth, I'm only gonna go down the thickness of the magnet because I want the magnets to be as flush to the surface as I can be without going too deep. And remember, this is only 1/2 inch thick. So if we go too deep, we're gonna be sort of encroaching on the opposite side magnet. And then I took it over to the miter saw where I would cut them all to length. This is where having that little 1/4 inch gap really comes into play because it allows for a little bit of error if need be. Now I chose to sand these by hand on a sanding block. You could use a belt sander or something, but just be real careful because if you take off too much material, you kind of have to just make a new block. I also went through and eased the edges so that they were a little bit easier to play with. All right, so here's where things get weird. This is where you really have to pay attention to which direction the magnets go. So I'm gonna work with these 6 pieces, and on these 6 pieces, we need, how do you say it with magnets? Is it positive, negative? Basically, I'm using push and pull. So we need to have one side all pulling, and with the magnet in this hand, when you flip this block over, this side needs to push. And each one of these needs to be the same way. I have this sample piece here. This is the first one that I made. If I go here, it pushes. If I turn it around, it pulls. So that's what we want to do. So in each one of these, we're going to add a little bit of super glue. We're just going to dab a little bit in here. Okay, so we're going to put the magnets in here. Again, one side pull, one side push, and we should be fine. On this first go around, you don't need to worry about it too much. I just put some glue in there. There you go. Nice and flat. All right, filming stuff like this is really nerve-wracking because I only get one chance to do it, but I'm gonna try and explain this the best I can. We want to glue these 2 blocks together in a way that makes this side pull and this side pull, which of course means that this side pushes away and this side pushes away. So all 3 blocks end up being the exact same, all 3 of these pieces. And so we want a pull and a pull. So if we go through, we make sure we have pulls up, okay, pull is up here and on my left, okay? So I'm gonna make sure that I have one pull facing this way, one pull facing this way. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna put a little dab of glue here. Obviously, if I was making a bunch of these, I would use wood glue and clamps or something to keep pressure on it, but for video's sake, we're just gonna use super glue. And then all I'm gonna do is just put these 2 together, just on the side here. Flush here, flush on the bottom. We'll hold it together for a couple seconds, but I can just set this one aside and be done with it. And that's all there is to it. After they're dry, you can sit there and play to your heart's content. Even after I knew how to put it together, once I got it apart and gave myself a few minutes away from it, it's actually really hard to get it back together. It's a really cool puzzle. But again, I'm not gonna show you guys how to put it together. I'm gonna leave that to Mr. Puzzle. I highly recommend you go check out his channel where he did a really good video on how he eventually solved it. It's very entertaining. So again, hopefully I'll link that at the end of the video. If not, it's down in the description box down below. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video as always, and Merry Christmas. We'll see you guys in the next video.